Hey, what's up? It's Laura Landers, and you are listening to the Live Sick, Die Ill podcast. And today we're talking about basically everything perfectionism. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. We're going to find out right now. I've got the one and only greatest friend of mine, Allie Rosenstein.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Laura. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
You know, it's funny to be in a semi-professional setting with one of your best friends.
I know.
Because
especially
we
in
don't.
blazers. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't talk like in professional settings together.
No,
we talk
no.
by ourselves.
Pretty much as unprofessional as possible.
Yeah.
So
In the best way.
But look at us now.
I know.
Who would have thought?
I know.
Not me.
So we're just going to dive in.
Let's do
because
it.
I feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just get to the goods. So, okay. Let's start from the beginning of time.
Okay.
Of Allie Rosenstein's time.
In the womb?
Right after. So I didn't know you as a child. You grew up in Florida. I grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
But we have very similar stories. Life stories.
Trajectory for
Yes.
like the first part of our life.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
So we were both competitive dancers. We both went to the same college, which we'll touch on in a minute.
Oh God.
We're definitely.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I was like,
Is part of the story.
it's part of the story.
It's a
for
major
sure.
part of the story.
Yeah.
And that it really it all deals with perfectionism.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
So
It's got to be rooted somewhere.
you know what's interesting is that I don't usually talk to people, or at least on the podcast, that are very similar minded as me. But you are. We're,
Yeah, we definitely get each other
very well.
Yeah.
So to what's the word? Elaborate or really dive in, almost dissect. There we go. Dissecting our brains is going to be really fun for me.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, when we come from a similar background of competitive dancing,
Yeah.
which if you don't know what competitive dancing is, you're spending all weekends, staring at yourself in a mirror,
In a leotard.
practicing the same dances over and over forever. You're comparing yourself to the dancers next to you. When you go to competitions on the weekend, you're comparing yourself to hundreds of dancers all around you. And then you get told what your worth is by the awards you receive.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of a recipe for
for perfectionism disaster.
yes.
So let me ask you this. I actually don't have this particular question written down, but that's why I like it. When you were a kid, and I would say, what year did you start dancing?
You know, for like three to
yeah.
8, took a break, and then I mean, seriously, like
Yeah.
from probably age like 10 to
now.
ish. You
Yeah.
know, it's been a minute, but yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
at 10, let's say, I feel like you remember the most.
I feel like at 10, that's when in my 5th grade, was that 5th grade? Would I be in 5th grade at that point? Kind of around then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That was the time
Maybe.
that I wrote my 5th grade yearbook, and my quote, I don't know if I've ever told you this. but
No.
I'm honestly freaking proud of it. No, I think the quote was like a picture under yourself when you're in 5th grade, and you had to be like, where I'm going to be in like 10 years. And I joke. I literally said, I'm going to be a dancer on MTV, living in Florida. I was actually living in New Jersey at the time, and then I moved. Living in Florida, married to a Yankee, in quotes, a Derek Jeter type.
Oh.
Yeah, and I don't know why I even told you that. Oh, no, just because I knew at 10, I was like, dancer. You know,
feel
like that's
I was
that's
the
plan.
same.
Yeah.
Like we knew what we wanted when we were around that age.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
You've never told me that, which is just a kick. So around the age of 10, do you feel like before that, let's say, you were already struggling? I don't want to say struggling with perfectionism, because I will say there's probably a good side to having it and a bad side to having it. You know, it's like
Two sides to
unhealthy
the
and
coin, for
healthy.
sure.
Do you feel like before you were 10, you were dealing with perfectionism?
I don't know if I would classify as like perfectionism. I had certain things that I was a bit obsessed with. That, like, I would say have obsessions with things that I would like drag into the ground until they were like, I perfected them. So I guess in some kind of way, like super random for juggling. I know that's super random. I was like, I'm going to learn how to juggle. So I bought juggling balls, and like every single day for like a month, I would juggle, and I can still do it. It's only like 3 balls, but like,
That's amazing.
Like but I would not stop until I could like do it for a certain amount of time. Or same thing with like learning skip it when I was in like 4th grade. You know, remember the skip it around your ankle? I would like go sit out in the backyard, and I guess it is kind of like an anal perfectionism, because I remember being like, I have to hit 100 without stopping. Like I can't trip until 100. Like I would do that. I did that with like pogo stick. I do that with like certain things. So I guess yes, because I would do it obsessively until I hit that certain number. And I don't have OCD or anything, so
it's funny that you just touch on OCD, because I did, and I went to therapy for it when I was in high school. And I feel like perfectionism and sometimes OCD are very close hand in hand. I feel like perfectionism can lead to OCD, and OCD is clearly not good in any way, shape, or form. Because it just is a very slippery slope and can get really bad. But it's interesting to know that it was borderline OCD, but you didn't like dive into OCD world.
Exactly. No, I didn't. But for sure, when you kind of say, when I'm like, was I struggling with perfectionism as a kid? I'm like, well, that's a little weird. It's a little bit anal retentive.
So the reason I wanted you to come on and talk about perfectionism is because now I'm so perfect. You're so perfect.
I'm so perfect. I know. Thank you.
Well, actually, what I really like is that you're a web designer, you do calligraphy, you choreograph, you're doing like typography and illustration. You're doing all of these things that you not only have to have a really good eye for, but a really actually good hand for too. So it's like a physical and a mental thing you have to put together. And it is, in a sense, because you are doing branding for people, and you have to like not only do like a whole bird's eye view of it, but also like the in-depth detailed view of it too, like 2 different perspectives. And this is your life, right? This is just what you do. On the other hand, I feel like from we haven't actually talked about this, so I'm interested to know, from the outside point of view, not being you and looking at you and your life.
Give me the juice.
I know.
Yes.
It seems like you have a really good handle on being a perfectionist when it is healthy for you, and then letting things go and you let go of the perfectionism when you don't need to have it in order to not let it run your life. Am I correct in saying that?
I think that's something that I have gotten better at, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely gotten better at doing that. I think honestly, being in the middle of a pandemic and being forced to slow down, which I'm sure we've heard 1,000 times from 1,000 different people, it forced me to do that, because it was like, especially when I wasn't at the office and I was working from home. I had so much time on my hands, and in the beginning, I like filled it with, I was like, I'm going to work on this project, then after this, I'm going to do this and then this. And I did 1,000 things. And eventually I learned, like, well, you don't really have to do that. Like, you can have office hours, for example. And I've kind of had to compartmentalize it like that. Like I understand what you're saying. I still think I strive for everything to be exactly how I want it. But I've learned to prioritize what's important to me. So I guess that's kind of what you're leading to. Like, that's how I'm able to, there's certain things that, it's not as important to be completely anal about it, make sure it's perfect. Some things I obsess over, but it's usually things I'm finding now that I get excited about, that I obsess over.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? I'm 31 now. I almost said 30. I'm 31.
You're still 30, honey.
Still 30 to me. No, but I definitely feel like I've zeroed in on the things that that kind of set my heart on fire and make me excited. So those are the things I put all my energy into making perfect, and making, I don't even want to say perfect, but I just, until it's absolutely right and I'm really satisfied with it, that's what I put my energy in. But I've learned to kind of figure out like what's not as important to me. And I don't know if that comes with age. Probably does a little bit. It comes with age. What's important to you? Who's important to you? So I guess I've gotten better at what you're saying. I definitely think, I think I have a pretty good handle on how to like navigate and not overwork myself sometimes. More often than not lately, I'm doing pretty good with that, but like
setting the boundaries.
That's been
for your mental health.
That's been a big thing. But I'm learning. So
you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Because what I realize is I find, not only for myself, but others that I've had conversations with, they almost feel like they're a slave to their perfectionism. Now, we all know that no one can be perfect. That's just, we all know that. So it's funny when we try to be perfect. Now it's like a catch-22, because we know we can't be perfect, but yet we want to be. in something, whatever it is. Like you were saying, you enjoy doing X, Y, and Z projects. And so you give that your perfectionist eye. And so how do you choose when to have, I guess I'm going to coin this term myself. There's like the split, right? There's like the perfectionist eye and then being a perfectionist. Having a perfectionist eye is good and being a perfectionist is not good. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you can take principles from being a perfectionist or, you know, the idea of wanting to strive for complete excellence in something. But yeah, it's knowing when to cut it loose and maybe not make that the end all be all. And that's kind of like if you are a hardcore perfectionist, like you don't know how to like decide that this is not something to be, you know, end all be all, like chill.
Yeah. When you're like working on a project that you love and you want it to be really good, for whatever reason, whatever the motivation is, right? Just for your own self-satisfaction or because you know it's going to be put up on a magazine because you've been in magazines or whatever it is. Whatever the motivator is, I guess when you are trying to be detail-oriented and make something great, how do you mentally choose to not obsess over it? Like, when do you know to put the digital pen down?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I don't know if I could, like, if I'm being honest, if I could confidently say, like, I figured out when that point, you know, when I hit that point. Yeah. Because I think more oftentimes than not, I don't know how to do that. I redesign things 80,000 times. Ironically enough, maybe it's because dance isn't my main career anymore, but that's the thing. Because I still choreograph for musicals for, like, local schools and theaters and stuff, which is a great outlet. But I find that that's lately where I tend to be like, like, I'm really happy with it. It's good.
Yeah.
Stop changing choreography. But like, I haven't, oh God, I'm going to pull upon, or, you know,
please do.
But like, I still haven't reached able to like stop the choreography with my hands, whether it's on a mouse or like with a calligraphy note. I can't believe I just did that. I guess I can. Who am I joking?
By the way, if you don't know who Allie is, I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not gassing her up for no reason. Allie is the wittiest person I know. That I don't know.
Your husband might be, but I'll take a second.
Jordan's funny. You are witty.
Ooh, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wit is important to me. It's a key personality trait.
Even with your website, just the little little sentences here and there. Yeah. Oh my gosh,
it's fun.
So good.
It's got to be you.
So I'm glad you made that joke.
Pun. You're very welcome. There are going to be more of them probably. Yeah. Whether I want them to be coming out of my mouth.
So you were saying that with designing, you are no longer with choreographing. I can
know when like good enough is a good enough. Like you don't need to kill it. And I think I'm still learning that with but you know what, something, and I'm sure you can kind of, you know, understand as your brand has evolved and you've evolved as a personality, you know, in public and privately, like I would say more publicly I'm referring to here, but I've kind of, now that I've figured out my style, finally, like, especially with like designing, like I like a certain style, I like certain typefaces, I like certain colors. Now that I've figured it out, I'm finding it easier to nail it quicker. So therefore I'm not doing as many revisions. Obviously that comes with, you know, any practice, you just get better the more you do it. But I feel like now that I've kind of found my style and I'm confident in it, I feel that because of that, I'm able to be like, no, this is good.
Yeah.
Be confident in this. It's all about confidence. And that's something I think that I'm sure you'll touch on this, but like, that's something that we've had to deal with so intensely as dancers is being confident when you're basically being told you suck, which is like, you know what I mean? That's like half of our life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. That was kind of a bit of a tangent, but
do you feel that you're hard on yourself more often than not?
Oh my God. I'm like,
do you feel that it's because of our dancing past?
You know, I was thinking about that, recently. I think how can it not be tied to that? Because our entire being as a dancer, especially like going through school, you know, starting at dance competitions and then going to college where we went to a really tough college where your appearance was more important than anything really, it felt like. And then, you know, pursuing dance professionally out in LA and New York, like your worth, at least from the outside perspective, is put on your appearance and how you move.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are inside, really. I mean, if you're a douche, nobody wants to work with you. But like, so yeah, I definitely think that comes from that. How can it not?
Right.
Do you agree?
I completely agree.
Like we're so hard on ourselves because we had to be and then it's so ingrained in you at such like a young age that like it's a real can I curse on here?
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely.
It's a real mind fuck to try to like psych yourself out of that. And I still haven't completely done it. I think I'm more gentle with myself than I used to be. Yeah, I'm so hard on myself.
Yeah.
You know, I know I am. My friends can tell me I'm hard. You tell me that all the time about certain things, right. You know, same with you. Yeah, but we're our own biggest critic. But I think sometimes like more intensely than I'd like to be, that I'm like, yeah, I'm really being mean to myself. Like, yeah. But I think it has to come a little bit from that, at least a little bit. Yeah. You know,
thank you for being vulnerable with that, because I feel like perfectionism doesn't just deal with your job. It deals with like every part of your life, even the way you look at yourself in a mirror.
Oh God. Yeah. 100%.
Because then you want your face to be perfect and you don't want this wrinkle. And like, I'm trying to minimize my wrinkles right now, you know.
You're looking good, girl.
Thank you.
That's gonna look smooth. Yeah.
But I feel like with the college we went to, and I'm not bashing the college.
No, I loved going to college. It was great. It was a great experience.
It was a great experience. It taught me a lot. What I like to tell people who don't know anything about our college is, and I'm not really going to say their name right now. You can go research it if you want to figure out where I went to. You'll find it. It's totally fine. But it was, for people that don't know, I call it a military school.
Yeah, pretty much. That's like a military dance school.
It was a military performing arts dance school. The dance program itself was what was so rigorous and rigid. And like, you would fail if you show up to class late. You would fail if you didn't weigh in at the certain number that they wanted you to weigh yourself in.
If you didn't have like your red lip on or something.
If you didn't have a red lipstick on. If you didn't have your hair done right for ballet class, like, you would lose letter grades and then you would eventually fail. And so man, I mean, when the weigh-ins came in, it was detrimental.
It's now looking back, like having come out of it and being kissing the mic. It's almost comical, the kind of methods people would use to like get it together for it. But
and through all of that, the perfection. So what I always preach about with college and coming out of it, and because you have to remember the good, right? So you're not like,
there's so much good.
I didn't just waste hundreds of thousands of dollars for nothing. You know what I mean? Right. So what I always, and I mean this, I'm not just saying this to make me feel, you know how like you break up with a boyfriend and you're like, I hate them because of this, and they sucked in this way, and they were so ugly in this way, but that was only to make yourself feel better and like move on.
No, totally.
And then
it's coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's coping. And then whenever you are out of the relationship for a long time,
you can be like, oh, it wasn't like,
it's like, oh, he was really good at this.
He might have smelled, but he didn't smell that
right.
bad.
Like, I admire the way he treated me in this way. I want my future boyfriend to do that in the same way.
Yeah. And that comes with, like age as well. You can look back in perspective, like, and you're like,
So with the college, I always like to say that it gave me the greatest professionalism class I could have ever received.
No, 1,000%.
And so what was actually really, okay, so I want to move on from the college thing, but I have to tell all this backstory for this to make sense. Our college was actually geared to make the dancers go to New York.
Yes.
To be a Rockette or
either
just
New York
be on Broadway.
Yeah, pretty much New York, or no, it's just New York. Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
And I knew before I went to college that I was going to LA.
Right.
In the back of my mind. And so you're like made to go this one route in professionalism, and you did go to New York.
But I wanted to, because I'm like a hardcore musical theater nerd, so like,
which I love.
Broadway, like,
you live.
I still want to be in Broadway. I'm still living the dream.
You could still
in
go
my car singing show tunes, but like, I wanted to go there. But I understand what you're saying. It was like you were molded, and you kind of had to, like, even if like this was the path, and you were kind of like going this way, maybe it made you kind of go, because
it would deter you to go back onto the path that they had for you. And so I want to ask if this is the same thing for you, because you did go to New York and I didn't. Did you find that when you went to New York, the professionalism aspect, and the reason I'm talking about professionalism is because I feel like it goes hand in hand with perfectionism.
100%. And like, I'll tangent
so
on later.
When you went to New York, do you find that New York was operating in a more professional, just overall realm than LA
I don't
functions.
know if necessarily professional, but I mean, kind of, yes. I would say it was more, what's the word? Like streamlined. Like
Okay.
LA is all about how edgy and different you can be. And unless you're auditioning for like a Disney thing or something like that. But
Right.
in New York, yeah, no, definitely. Like you didn't have to think as hard, for example, about what you were going to wear to an audition, because you could just be like classy black unitard and that would be enough. You were always expected to have your resume. Like, you showed up with a resume. That wasn't even an option. You know, people sometimes in LA will show up with like a marker handwritten on the back of their paper because they're like, oh, I forgot it. You know what I mean? I've seen it happen before. So I would say definitely like our college for sure prepared me for the New York vibe. It's definitely a little bit, I would say structured. That's more what I would say.
Yeah.
That's what, instead of professional, it just felt more structured.
Yeah.
Versus being out here, it's a total...
Right.
You kind of do your own thing and figure it out as you go. And it's a totally different vibe. So I'm not surprised that you're saying that you knew you were going to come here. I mean, when I lived here before you moved here, you stayed with me. So it was obviously like you were on that track.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think that it's just a different vibe in New York.
Yeah.
You know?
The reason I ask is because our college was so professional. So the highest professionalism I think I will ever deal with for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't even make a mistake.
Yeah.
And then when I came out here, and I'm sure there's other parts of the country that are like LA, maybe in this sense, but it almost felt like if you were too professional, if you were too perfect,
It was frowned upon.
It was frowned upon. It's like, whoa, bruh, you need to chill.
Yeah. Kind of like, you don't need to be at the audition 15 minutes ahead of time. Like, it's better if you roll
like
in
it
late.
makes all of us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You should just show up like a minute late.
Yeah.
Which I disagree with.
Well, it just it makes me like twitch when you tell me that.
Right.
Now.
And so that all kind of boils back down to the perfectionism. Like you have to, and this is what I do like about perfectionism, and perfectionism I feel is different for everyone and is bred into them differently and is carved into them differently.
Yeah.
And it will always be a part of you in some way, shape, and form. Whether you call yourself a type A person or type B person or a mix or whatever, I feel like you need to let that perfectionism hold your ground, and you don't need to be settling for what the culture around you is telling you to do.
Right. You need to still have your own path and how you would walk that path, I guess.
Yeah.
If you can all be going on the same path, but if you have a more heightened sense of perfectionism in the way you walk your path, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So getting back to you and what you do with your branding for people, whether it's like a person that you're helping brand for or a company you're helping brand for.
Yeah.
When you're working with clients, when you're working with people. Now, I am not afraid to say that I majorly struggle with, if I'm working with anyone. Now, I don't really have clients like you do per se, but when I'm working with other people, if they are not as professional as me, or
does it drive you up a wall?
I was going to ask you, because it almost makes me feel like I am a really bad person.
Okay, it is so
because
funny
I
that you're bringing
expect them
this
to
up.
be on my level.
I literally had this conversation with my boyfriend last night. I'm not even joking.
Wow.
And I was saying almost the exact same things you're saying. Now, I don't want, if anybody is, looking for branding or anything like that, don't think that I'm like a scary person to work with. It's the opposite.
Oh my God, you're like the most fun person.
Yeah,
I
like it to be as fun as possible and just like have a blast.
And you're so professional. Sorry.
Thank you.
It's great.
But I understand what you're saying. I think I definitely operate. I think that's probably why you and I mesh together. Like when we've worked together.
Yeah.
It's so smooth.
It's like a euphoria.
Yeah, it's just so easy. Even to like something as simple as like when you email me back, you give me bullet points and it's like a full sentence in the bullet points. So I like understand what you're saying. And I don't have to ask you about it. Like the end, getting back to what you're asking. Yes, it actually, does it actually drive me a little crazy when people aren't kind of like at my level of professionalism? Yes, 100%. But what I've been working on, this is something I've really been working on internally, is acceptance and being patient. Not everybody is wired the same. It's like the same way that different people have different love languages. Like, we're all wired differently. We all process differently. We're all capable of different things. And some people are more right brained. Some people are more left brained. I tend to think I do have kind of like a weird mix of both.
Yes, you do.
So, and I don't think it's like rare, but the way that it comes out in my life is pretty obvious. Like, I can be crazy creative, but I also want like great grammar and like organization to a T so I can follow everything. And just, I don't think everyone's like that. And it's, for me, it's been, yes, it is the initial, when I see something that like kind of frustrates me, because I'm like, I'm putting out this super professional, like packaged, gorgeous deal. And I'm getting like, somebody's not being thoughtful in their responses back, whether it's like client feedback or even just like talking to friends. If I'm like putting out a lot and I'm not getting a lot back, yes, I instantly get irritated. But it's learning to, instead of judging and making someone wrong for not being just like you, it's more just learning to accept it and be like, okay, I'm trying to learn that for myself. I don't know if that's something you try to do, but I feel like, but sometimes when I get irritated about things, if someone's not being concise or they're like rambling or they're like, there's so many things. I feel like right now I'm sounding like I'm a crazy person who's like, I have all these issues. No, I love people. I'm a people person. It just, I understand what you're saying though. Like, it drives me a little bit crazy, but it's learning how to accept that it drives you crazy and that it's okay that it drives you crazy, but you're not allowed to make other people wrong for it. Oh, does that make sense?
That's so good.
That's the thing I've really been working on for myself. And I still, I mean, I was just talking about it with my boyfriend last night. So I obviously still struggle with it, but that's professionally and personally. And I think that's just something I have to learn how to deal with. And I'm sure tons of people, identify with that feeling too. I know you do.
I feel like I can speak for a lot of people right now when I say that. I think you hit it right on the head in such great detail, because, oh my gosh, I feel like so you're just saying that's something you're working on, right? Having patience, having grace for people, not judging them. I'm working on all those things in the aspect of perfectionism and professionalism. But I'm working on not being so quick to anger when those moments happen.
100%.
Yeah. Because you just work your ass off to give the best,
like an optimum experience.
And that's the thing. You give the experience. You don't just give a good product at the end. Because even if we weren't really good friends and I was just working with you on a professional level, I have never had fun working with someone like I've had working with you.
Especially creatively, because something I love about you is that you have such clear vision. I mean, even if it's not clear, it's still clear, because I can see it from the outside perspective of like, you have a very specific way you like things. Yeah. You have a very specific aesthetic. It was easy for me to kind of figure you out like 100% when we were working together design wise. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that you touched on that you're dealing, with this not only professionally but personally.
More so than anything.
With the text messages that you have with your friends or whatever, like, that is something that consumes our everyday all the time. We're always getting texts from people. Like, we don't work every single day. We live our life personally every single day, 24/7. So, oh my gosh, I just feel like with the perfectionism, we have to almost move forward in life with open hands. Like, not hold on too tight.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. But like, we both know that's the way to be happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because perfectionism could turn black real quick.
It can get, I think, something that I know we've talked about just like in private conversations and, when I've been helping you rebrand and everything like that, it can be so debilitating. It's been debilitating for me. I've learned how to work with it, kind of, but being someone that, if you hold yourself to an impossible standard at all times, if it's in all multiple areas of life or if just in your work, whatever it is, it can be super debilitating, which is why, for God's sakes, I've been doing like web design and branding for years. If you went to my Instagram right now, which I'm revamping, but if you went to it, you would have no idea. Why? Because I haven't posted anything, even though I've done a ton of projects.
Yeah.
Because I want it to look absolutely perfect. And if it doesn't look absolutely perfect, I don't want it out there. That's delaying me in getting anything done. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you can relate to that, but that's, it can get so debilitating in that sense where it's like, you can't move forward because it's like you stop yourself from doing it.
Right.
Because you're like, no, it has to be perfect. Well, what's that quote where it's like, it's sometimes better to just do it and then refine it? It's not that. It's a more eloquent way of saying
better
that.
to just put it out there than, gosh.
You know what I'm talking
Everyone
about,
knows. Everyone who's listening is like, guys, come on, get it together. And we're like,
we're gonna hand two in the bush. Like, come on, you guys. No, but I can't think of what it is. But that's kind of the idea, which is something I've been trying to like give myself a mantra. It's like, it's okay to put it out there and you can refine it afterwards. Nobody is watching. What is that? I love that quote where it's like, nobody cares about you as much as you think they do. Or it's not quite that.
Oh yeah.
Nobody's
People
thinking
aren't
about you as much
waiting
as
around for you to post something on social media.
And they're like, oh, the spacing on the R was like a little bit off. The kerning was bad. Like nobody's like, they're like, oh, that's a pretty picture. And then they move on. Right. You know what I mean? But for us, when, whether it's like as a dancer, it's like, oh, you're so anal about that one move. It's like, you can watch an entire piece of choreography that you were a participant in. Yeah. And you kind of moved your elbow wrong on one count, and that's all you can think about. You walk off stage, and you're like, it was terrible. It was, I mean, how many times have we done that? Like, it was absolutely awful. Non-stop. You're like, I moved my elbow wrong. I moved it on 7. It was supposed to be 8. Everybody stared. Nobody probably even noticed. But it ruined your day, and
that's good.
It's real. It translates to so much, taking, again, back to our background. Some of it definitely stems from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the same if you were like a soccer player or if you're a basketball player or if you're a musician or
it's like you're watching the tape back, like when like basketball players and the coach like circle stuff and they're like, oh, look at this play. Like that was rough. Like I feel like I'm constantly doing that. Even watching the tape back of like, whether it's like my design business or I'm watching how I dealt with the conversation with my boyfriend, for example. I like replay it 15 times in my head. Like, oh my gosh, who's that helping? Right. No one. Right. Nobody's perfect. It's okay to fight. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to like not do a first draft of a project perfectly the first time. That's why it's called a draft. Right. Right. But yeah, I don't know. I think it can be debilitating in a lot of ways, but if you kind of recognize the areas where your, I guess, perfectionism is peeking through too much and it's like having a detrimental effect on your life, that's where, if you can recognize those areas, I think that's like one step to getting past it.
I was going to say, how do you recognize it? Like for you let's use the Instagram, for example, because I think you stopped posting when the pandemic started.
Yeah, that wasn't even intentional. That was just like, that just happened. But I could be like, oh, so sorry.
It was the pandemic.
It was the pandemic.
I think we can all use the pandemic as an
we're like
excuse
2020.
Right. It's so great. So let's use the Instagram for an example. When did you notice for yourself that the perfectionism kind of stopped you? I mean, there could have been other reasons as well, not just being perfect and having everything lined up and whatever, but like, when did you feel the mental recognition that, oh, I haven't been posting, and oh, it's probably because of blank?
I think I definitely experienced it. I'm sure you can relate to this, and so many people can, no matter what the career is. Yeah. I definitely feel like I hit a point of burnout. I definitely, I stopped posting. I stopped really promoting myself, even though I was working on things, learning on the side. But I hit a point of burnout where I was like, I don't want to look at like how to make my grid aesthetically pleasing anymore, because it's driving me up a wall, because it's never perfect. One day it looks good. The next day I'm like, ooh, that brown doesn't look good next to that pink. Like I drove myself crazy. So I started feeling exhausted from it. And that's when I think I stopped kind of probably posting as much as I should. And, because, social media is the way of the world these days. You have to do it there. But I think I recognized, I think like I said, during the pandemic, I definitely had a lot more time to refine what I actually love doing. And now that I've kind of leaned into that, I've had so many creative ideas in my head and I just haven't put them to paper. But I noticed that I feel like the sign for me that I was like, oh, you need to start getting into this again and stop getting, get past that mental block that you put on yourself that has to absolutely look perfect, is just when I found myself, especially with design things, I don't sleep well sometimes at night because I'm literally designing websites in my head as I'm sleeping. Like I'm drag and dropping things. Like it's a total nightmare, to be honest with you. No pun intended.
I love that.
But I feel like there were so many kind of things happening in my head that I was like, okay, this needs like pen to paper now. Like stop being perfectionist, just give it a shot.
Yeah.
And now I'm excited about it again. So it's like getting over that hump of, you know, recognizing it, acknowledging it. Like what I did is I acknowledged it. I was like, I'm burning out. I'm becoming too anal about certain things. I need to take a breather. The breather ended up being like a 9-breath breather, which, you know, hey, live your life. That's what I was doing. But yeah, I think it's just about noticing it, and you can give yourself as long as you need to.
Right. Don't put a number
sit
on
in it. And yeah, don't put a number on it. Just don't judge yourself.
Right.
You know, like don't judge other people. Don't judge yourself.
Yep.
And
don't compare
that's the name of my
yourself.
autobiography.
That's good. There's your memoir.
Yeah. No, that's not clever enough. It needs to be something like stupid and witty and like dumb with like a, you know, black and white portrait of like, I don't know.
Allie Rosenstein, a memoir. Stupid, witty, dumb. Is that what you just said? Yes, you did.
Probably. I don't know anymore. What day is it? I don't know.
I don't know either.
But yeah.
That's really interesting. And I feel like that doesn't just deal with and if people aren't on Instagram per se, and like so they're not relating to the Instagram story that you just went through, like that's very, very relatable. Because even like if you're serving at your church and then you realize like you're doing it every weekend when you probably shouldn't be, and then you burn out and then you don't like it anymore and you're doing it out of obligation, and then that's very bad.
And it
you need to take time.
And it stinks when it happens to something that you truly once loved or that you know you could love again. Like and it's also like I wish, at least for me, I kind of recognized the burnout before it happened. But I also think that's a kind of a conversation. I feel like there's so many things about like mental health and, you know, wellness that like are so more openly discussed.
Yeah.
I listen to 1,000 podcasts that talk about the same thing, but in different ways. So that's why they're engaging. But like burnout, like I didn't know what that word was really. Like,
really?
Was it like when you did too many squats and like, you know, you're like, oh, the burn, like I'm done, I'm out, you know, like, but truly, you know, like I don't think I really recognized it until it was happening. And then I feel like it became a word that I heard a lot of people be like, oh, maybe it's because I engage with a lot of other artists and stuff. But I was like, oh, they understand this burnout thing. It's a real thing.
It is a real
thing.
thing.
It sucks when it happens with like something you're actually really passionate about. I mean, that's what happened to me. I feel like for a while with dance. I don't know. Can you relate to that?
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I've watched you go. I mean, we've been friends since college, and we were doubles. You know, like we've been friends forever. And I've seen you go through so many different kind of iterations of Laura. Not like personality wise, you've always been yourself, but like careers and things you're interested in, things you're like really attacking. Yeah. And I think it's like, can you relate to that? Do you know what I mean? Like,
hands down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I also feel like I burn out because it really isn't my, and I kind of get hesitant when I say this word, but it's not my calling.
No, totally. Yeah.
Or it is my calling, but I wasn't going about it in the right way, or I was going at it at a huge thing that during the pandemic I realized was that my pace is different than other people's paces. So like,
what's your pace? What would you like?
Oh, I'm very slow.
You're slow.
I am so incredibly slow.
Okay.
And I didn't know that about myself.
I wouldn't know that about you until you told me that.
I thought I was fast.
Because I feel like you are.
I am not.
Interesting.
I didn't know this.
I don't even know you.
I know.
Who are you? Whose house is this?
Stranger. So Jordan, and the only reason I knew this is because of Jordan. He moves incredibly fast. And,
really?
And it actually makes me
But he's so
nervous.
chill, so I feel like he would be like slow, but not like too slow.
No,
but like,
he as soon as he has an idea in his head, he executes it literally in 1 second. I don't even have time to process it. So then I start getting anxious because he's already, whatever that is, as stupid as it is. Like we will get toaster strudels, and we do.
I love this. I love where this is going.
I love toaster strudels. So we'll get toaster strudels, and it's the first time we've gotten toaster strudels in years. So I don't remember how to heat them up. Let's just say I actually do, but just now we're just using
hypothetically
this as an example.
speaking.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, how long do I heat this up for? And he will have already ripped open the box and thrown it in the trash and taken the trash out for me to be able to be like, wait, I need to look at the box to read the instructions. And so just little stuff like that had made me realize in one sense, that is like almost a perfectionist way about me, that I'm like, maybe if I just trust the process a little bit more, then I won't be freaking out as much. But then I realized I was a really slow processor once him and I.
Interesting.
I research everything.
That's true. I mean, you're very thorough.
I
You're
have
so
to be thorough in order to feel at peace
and
in
confident
decisions.
about it. Yeah.
And so, if I'm not going at the pace I need to go at, then I feel like I either burn out really fast.
Or you like shut down from it. You're
I shut down, or I go about it in the wrong way and I just don't execute it as well. And then I just don't feel like I have I don't want to say control over things, because that could get negative, because having too much control over something is bad, but having a good control over things is good. But even in those situations, I feel like I don't have a good control over them. And then I just feel completely lost.
It makes you like spin out.
I literally am spinning out of control. And emotionally, then it sparks like negative emotions, and then you just kind of, but I'm also a very emotional person. So some people, it wouldn't even affect them emotionally, but it would affect.
That would affect me. I feel like I'm literally the opposite from you. I'm Jordan in that situation, like 1,000%. So it's interesting for me to like, I was going to ask you like, what's it like being on the other side of it? Because the way you described that toaster strudel situation, like that's me.
Just throwing it away.
I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like I just have to, I'll read it really quick. Okay, we're good. I got it. And then you do it and then you mess it up because you go too fast.
And I don't want to mess it up, because that's the perfectionist in me is, why would you mess it up? Why wouldn't you just read the box, take, whatever.
And then in my brain, it's just so funny, like hearing the opposite end of it. Cause my brain is like, we'll read the box faster. Like that's, I took a quiz once and I forget what it was, one of those that's not like an Enneagram, but it's kind of like one of those quizzes where it reveals about your, like kind of how you work through things. And mine is like, I expect everything to just go, be on my level, go. And it's something, it kind of comes along to learn, like what we talked about earlier with like learning how to accept and not judge other people for being wired differently. Cause it doesn't mean they're wired wrong.
Right.
Who's to say I'm wired wrong? Nobody's wired wrong. They're just wired how they're wired.
Right.
So I think something I learned from like that quiz, which like really sat with me, was something like, I expect things to kind of move along quickly, because that's how I process. And when someone who comes along and is like, say like on that quiz, I was like an A and they're a C personality, and they come in with the C and they're like, oh, like I wasn't able to accomplish all that because I was like being really thorough about this one task. And like my first instinct, this is what I've learned to work through. My first instinct is to be like, well, why can't you just do it? Like I can do it. So why can't you do it?
Yeah. You're like, if I have the same time frame as you.
Exactly. Why can't you do it? But then the other person would probably look at me and be like, well, why do you have to do everything so crazy fast? Can't you breathe for a second and enjoy the process? Like there's two sides to every coin. Yeah. So I think tying it back to this whole concept of being a perfectionist, I think there's some qualities about being a perfectionist I would never not want to have. I would never give them up. Right. They help me produce aesthetically pleasing work. I can feel confident. I love it. I've had amazing experiences because I'm such a I can be such a workaholic about things. And there are a lot of other areas of my life that I'm trying to, now that I'm older, like look back on and be like, maybe you don't need to be so crazy about this area. Right. It's where I'd like to like wipe myself clean of that, Sure, so it's I don't know. I feel like it's the thing we keep coming back to is it's just a learning process. Being a perfectionist in certain areas is not bad. Correct. But it can't be your entire life. It can't be who you are as a being, because it's like, I would never want to identify myself as a perfectionist. Does that make sense?
Correct. Yes. Same.
Yeah. You can be like, no, I've definitely have qualities that, lean in that direction, but it doesn't define me, So.
Well, I think that's the perfect way to close this podcast.
I feel like I just rambled for I don't even know what I said. Like when you talk and then you feel like, oh, is that what I sound like? Kind of like when you say a word too many times and you're like, is that a word? And you start thinking about, am I saying the word? Am I saying this out loud? Like you start having a little internal dialogue. I literally do that all the time. This entire conversation with you. So I hope I didn't come across like you came across crazy person.
Really, really well. You had a lot of great gold nuggets in there that I will be listening back.
Putting together that little flip calendar for people's desks, just one day at a time. I'll design it, you'll pose for it, it'll be great.
Oh my god. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't looked at my website, Allie designed the entire thing. So when we're talking this entire podcast about
working together,
the main thing her and I have been working on is my website, and we actually kind of redid it one time.
Yeah,
recently.
within like a week. Like,
oh yeah, it was within 1 week.
We power houred that. Yeah.
Really changed up the whole thing. So that's another really awesome thing about Allie is that she can. I don't even know. You're just a magician.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really sweet of you. Thank you.
So
you're easy to work with, so it was quite easy to turn around. But
like, can we do another website just for fun?
Like, let's find a random hobby for you, and we'll just like make it like a totally different aesthetic, and the whole thing will be great. Yeah, we'll do a site for Louis.
That's right. We'll make a French bulldog.
Thick hounds for Thick Thoughts
Thick...
by Louis, and it could just be like a blog of like how he feels every day. He's
copyright like, TobyRose Designs.
Thick Thoughts by Louis. Thick Thoughts by Thick Hounds, and you can like bring Pearl on. Like it could be a whole thing.
Please, let's not forget about this.
Copyright. Won't go anywhere.
But please go check out Allie's website at TobyRoseDesigns.com and check out her Instagram. Which is gonna look dope by the time you see it. We'll see. Yeah, no, it will.
Goals.
And that will be at TobyRose Designs as well. Mm-hmm. How do you spell Toby?
Toby. Laura says Toby.
I say Toby.
It's my middle name. Yes. That's odd.
So TobyRose, ROSE Designs.
Yes.
So please go follow her, not only on Instagram, but go look at her website. Go look at my website so you can see her work because I'm so incredibly proud of what she's done.
Shout out, Mama.
Yeah, of course. It's so good. One day, it's a pipe dream of mine to be it's never going to happen, but to be a modern architect, and then you design my website for modern architecture.
Things like this, like wanting to jump into a shark's mouth, and then like wanting to be a modern architect.
Yeah.
Like you're always surprising me, Laura.
I can already see the landing page of the shark's mouth, like straight into the shark's mouth, and then like you can click on the teeth, and it'll bring you to something
different
new.
nav pages.
But it'll be like not like clip arty. Like it'll look really sophisticated
and dynamic.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll be like
a cinematic experience.
Don't give too much away.
Oh, okay? Sorry,
this is gonna be like a big thing.
Okay.
It's like shark mouth, Louis Pog.
Right.
Modern architect website. It all blends together.
That's right. It'll be good. Thank you so much for listening. Feel free to follow us on the Instagram at Live Thick Die Ill Podcast. Follow me on my personal Instagram at It's Laura Landers. I think that's all we have for you today.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
Thank you for being on
Just
here,
for
Allie.
hanging out.
I love you.
I love you.
And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.